Testifiers here, and welcome to my very first YouTube video. I am so excited to be here with you all today, and by the name of the title of this video, you can kind of figure out that I am going to be sharing my testimony with you. This is something I've always wanted to do. I've always been really nervous to share this, but I know it's something that God has placed on my spirit and on my heart. And, you know, I've been called to do this, and I have to answer that call. I do want to say that some of the things I'm going to be discussing in this video may be a little sensitive and triggering, just as a disclaimer, but I also want to make it clear that everything that I share, I truly believe that it was part of my journey that's still continuing. I'm not ashamed of anything that I'm sharing here. It's made me the person that I am today, and I continue to be sanctified. I continue to grow and expand, and I just hope that, you know, as uncomfortable as this might be, that it also can help one person out there. So before I get into my testimony, I do want to just say a quick little prayer, just to make sure we're inviting in the Holy Spirit and that I'm allowing God to work through me as I go through this testimony. Heavenly Father, I just want to thank you for all the people listening and watching this video right now. May you bless and touch their lives in the way that you know they need right now at this moment. Father God, I just ask that you allow my words to be edifying and helpful to someone out there. Give me the strength to speak with conviction and with courage. And I just thank you. I thank you so much, Yah, for everything that you do and that you continue to do in my life. And I pray that you continue to do a wonderful work in everyone on this video right now that's watching. In your precious holy name of Jesus Christ, I pray. Amen. All right, so let's get into it. And apologies if I'm looking down sometimes. I'm just referring to some of my notes just because I want to make sure I stay on track and I don't start rambling on or get off tangent, because I do have a tendency to do that sometimes. So I want to keep myself honest, right? All right, so I'm going to start out at my childhood. So I am the youngest. I was born and raised in New York City. My mom and dad are married. They've been married since I was a little girl. I have an older sister, two older brothers, and an older half brother. So I was primarily raised in the home with my mom, my dad, my older sister, my two older brothers, and then me. So I am the baby. So, just as a kid, really nothing traumatic or anything. My mom had me and my youngest brother in church all of the time. Sunday school, I absolutely loved it. I loved bringing home my little Sunday school workbooks and learning about God and learning about the gospel and the word. And it was just something that innately in my spirit and my soul, I just believed. Like I had questions, but it was never from a place of trying to like disprove. It was more like a curiosity, which I feel most children have, but it was never a feeling of I don't believe this, but I'm gonna ask questions to be like, okay, well, why is this true, if that makes any sense? So I always had that connection, always had belief. Fast forward, go to high school, middle school. I'm not, I do little things. I'm not super like into a lot of the same things that some of the other kids or the other girls in middle school are in, but I have my little crew of friends, and we ride bikes and we go to the park and just kid stuff. We were still young and exploring, nothing, crazy or out of the ordinary. Fast forward into high school, much of the same. I was really like skinny and kind of awkward. I never really felt like I fit in high school. I'm sure you guys know the whole high school thing. It's like very siloed, and it's very, you're either a jock or you're really a popular kid or you're a nerd, like everybody wants to put you in a box. And that was something for me that I struggle with, because I didn't feel like I ever truly identified with just one of those things. I wasn't, a popular girl, but I also wasn't like some science nerd or geek or anything, but I enjoyed school. I always got good grades. I was put in honor roll classes. I was a cheerleader. But I just never felt like I really belonged in high school. I was actually really looking forward to going away to college, to be honest. I kind of was like, I'm just ready to get out of high school. I'm over it. I just felt like everyone was the same. And if you grew up in New York City, you kind of know what New York City high school, public New York City high school is like. It's like you better come with the latest Jordans and just all the name brand designer clothes, and that was not me. My mother was not spending that kind of money on clothes. I was kind of tomboyish, actually. I would wear my brother's like old Tommy Hilfiger jeans, and I would always have my hair like back in a bun, and very like more on the tomboy side. I didn't get a lot of attention from, the boys in my school. I was never like boy crazy in high school. I had my little crushes here and there, but it was never anything like, I had like a high school sweetheart or anything like that. So my best friend and I kind of had very similar high school experiences. And because of that, we made this agreement, this pact to make sure we went to the same college. It was like, okay, we didn't go to high school together, but we're 100% going to go to the same college. So when that time came around, we literally made sure we applied to the same exact colleges in the same exact order. We were like, there's no way we're going to have our college experience not together. Like, that just was not going to happen. So we pretty much actually got into the same colleges, which was great. And then we had our choice of where we wanted to go. And we ultimately both decided to go to school upstate New York. So it was still far enough for us to have that separation from home and still feel like, we were adults at that time and get that college experience, but not too far where we were like, oh my gosh, I really miss home. Now I got to get on a flight, or, it was nothing like that. So get to college, and it's, it's interesting because growing up in New York, a lot of people have this idea that New York is this like huge melting pot, which it is in a sense, but it is still somewhat segregated, like depending on the area you grow up in and the type of neighborhood you're in. So we weren't fully exposed to like different backgrounds and races and cultures as much as we were going into college. There were just so many different types of people from all over. We had like international students from other countries. So it was amazing and eye-opening in that sense that we got to experience different types of people from all walks of life. Freshman year, we were getting our footing. We were still kind of like nervous and like, oh, what is this about? And, we weren't sure if we were going to like make friends, but we had each other. So it was interesting. And I would say we didn't really start getting into what most people would consider like a college experience until I would say maybe like our second semester, our freshman year, is when we kind of started venturing out a little more and going out to like parties. And so this is where things start to get interesting. Now, taking it back to my faith at this point, I still believe in God. I don't really have any type of real spiritual life at this point. I'm not really praying. I'm not, going to any type of local church. I'm not reading my word. I'm just, I still believe in God, but I'm not that's not what I'm thinking about, right? Like my mind is not on spiritual things. So start, going out to parties, not really drinking or anything. That was another thing. We weren't like these like girls that were like, oh, like as soon as we go to college, we're going to start drinking. We didn't really get into a lot of that initially. So, going into second semester, we go to a party on campus, and this is where it starts to get good, and this is when I'm going to kind of refer to my notes a little bit, just so I can make sure I'm staying on track, like I told you guys. So I meet what I would consider my first actual boyfriend, right? So at this party, and there's this guy there, and he's got tattoos, and he's real cool, and he's like, posted up and all of this stuff. And back then, that was like my thing. Like I was into that kind of like bad boy look, and I know, so basic, so typical, right? But that is what I, gravitated toward. He was older than me. I was a freshman. I believe he was already a senior. And he had a car. He had like a nice car. And back then it was like cool to have like TVs in like your headrest. So he had like a TVs in his headrest, and he drove like a luxury car. And I just was like, wow, like he likes me, like, cause mind you, let me take it just another step back. I was brought up very sheltered in the sense that, which is somewhat a detriment, but I want to have like a whole separate video on that whole thing. But my parents never really sat down and spoke to me about intimacy or sex. Really, it was kind of just this unspoken thing that, you just do what you're supposed to do, in the sense of like, don't have sex, wait till you're married. And that was 100% my intentions. I was still a virgin at this point, still a virgin going into college, and those were my intentions. But it was never like a sit down conversation that I had with my parents about, oh, this is how a man's supposed to treat you, and these are the things that as a young lady you should understand, and all of that stuff. Never had any of those types of conversations. So I'm basing pretty much all of my relationships with boys or men, what I'm seeing on TV, what, some of my friends that might be a little bit more experienced are telling me. Like, that's where my foundation is coming from, right? So doing all of that, I meet this guy. Like I said, I thought he was super cool. He went to another school upstate. He didn't go to my school. And we started talking. We exchanged phone numbers. And yeah, I started, I had a little crush on him. And I don't really remember when we made things like official or whatever. But he pretty much asked me to be his girlfriend. And I said yes. Mind you, never took me out on a date, like nothing. Like, just literally, this is all just talking on the phone. And then it was like, be my girlfriend. I was like, okay, like, sure. So now we're in a relationship, and I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I've never had a boyfriend before. So I'm just like going with the flow. I'm just kind of going off of what he's like leading me to do. I really don't have standards for myself. I'm just like, okay, this is my boyfriend. He's older. He's cute. Like, and that's all I'm really concerned with at this time. So, we're dating or whatever. And there were a few like things that kind of stuck out to me. Obviously, the whole him not taking me out on any like official date. But then again, I'm like, oh, we're in college, like I'm not thinking anything of it. But then there was something that kind of happened that made me raise an eyebrow. So I used to do like work studies. So like anyone that went to college, you kind of know, like, you can get like on-campus jobs, and they pay you a little like stipend or a little bit of money for working on campus, and you can use that for, whatever you want to use it for. So I used to work with this other girl in one of the residence halls, and she was like talking, and she's like, oh, do you know so and so? And I was like, oh yeah, like that's my boyfriend. She's like, oh, like, yeah, like me and my friend hang out with him and his friends like all the time, and like we get high. And I'm just like, okay, like, why are you telling me this? So I'm just, again, like not thinking about it really, and I'm just like, all right, whatever. So fast forward again, and mind you, I'm still a virgin at this point. I'm not sexually active whatsoever. We end up going to his school. So we had a RA at the time. If you, RA is a resident advisor. It's like someone that is kind of like a student, but they oversee a resident hall or a floor in a residence hall in college. And she was our friend, like our really good friend. We loved her, and she drove. She had a car, and she was like, hey, like I'm going up to this school to see some of my friends. And that just so happened to be the school that my boyfriend at the time attended. So me and my best friend and our other friend who was our RA at the time, we drove up to this school, and she went to go hang out with her friends, and then me and my best friend went to go hang out with my boyfriend. So we go to his room, and he has like a decked out dorm room. Like if anybody that has gone to college, standard dorm, it pretty much looks like a prison cell, to be honest. I mean, I know you can zhuzh it up, but most people's dorms were just pretty much plain. He had like a fish tank with all these exotic fish in it. He had like a flat screen TV. Like it was all decked out. So I'm like, okay. So, we're just hanging out, talking, laughing. I think at one point we were like watching a movie. And as we're just, chilling, his door, like people keep knocking on his door to his room, and he keeps getting up, and they're like coming to the door, and then he steps out, and he comes back, and me and my best friend are like, okay, this is weird. Like, what is going on here? So we don't say anything, and we're just like going with the flow. And so one time he like really leaves. He's like, I'll be back. And he like actually leaves. And so me and my best friend were like, okay, should we like go through his stuff? Because we're like, what is going on here? So we just like start going through like his stuff, and like he has all these clothes and sneakers, and we're just like, all right, this is nothing. But we just felt like there's something going on. So I don't know if it was like under his, like he had like a futon in his room. So I don't know if it was like under his futon or under his bed. But we find this like box, and we like open up the box, and there is like so many different types of drugs and pills and like weed and like all this stuff. And then there's like all this money, like stacks and stacks of money. And I'm just like, wow. And the crazy thing is, in my mind at the time, I'm like, he has all this money and he hasn't taken me out on one single date all this time we've been together. That's what I'm actually thinking about this whole time. I'm just like, wow, so you got all this money and you haven't taken me out on one date, haven't brought in me a single flower, like nothing. Instead of being like, oh my gosh, I'm dating a drug dealer, I'm sitting there thinking about he hasn't used any of this money to take me out anywhere. So me and my friend are like, put it back, like he's gonna come. And I'm just like almost in shock, because I've never been around anything like this before, right? So I'm just like, wow, like, is this for real? Like, he's really out here doing this? So I never say anything. I don't bring it up to him, because obviously I was going through his stuff. So I'm not going to be like, hey, I was going through your things and I saw this. So I never bring it up, and I kind of just let it go. So time continues to pass, and I feel like one day, like just randomly, don't know when, I'm calling him, and his phone just is ringing. He doesn't answer, doesn't pick up. So I'm just like, all right. Call him again a few hours later. Same thing happens. Call him again, like late at night. Now his phone is like completely like off. It's not even ringing anymore. It's like going straight to voicemail. So I'm just like, okay, this is strange. So what ends up happening? Okay, so then I'm like starting to get worried, right? I'm getting nervous. I'm getting a little like, okay, what is going on? And my best friend's like, oh, I'm sure he's fine. Like maybe he just went out or his phone died. So I let a day or two go by and still no call back, no text, no nothing. And I'm just like, okay, now I'm getting worried at this point and I'm concerned. So I go into like detective mode. I call his room phone because back then you also had like a dorm room phone. If you like chose to hook up like a landline, you could call someone's room. I called his room. No one answered. I even tried to reach out to his school, but obviously his school is not going to give me any type of information. I'm not a family member or anything like that. So that was like not even anything. So at this point, I'm just like, okay, what is going on? I'm worried. I'm nervous. Nothing. Like absolutely nothing. So eventually I'm just like, okay, I guess I have to just let this go. Like, I don't know what happened to my boyfriend. Like, he's just missing at this point. None of his friends contacted me, nothing. So I'm just like, okay. So, months go by at this point, and I'm, getting over this situation, and randomly, out of the blue, just one random day, mind you, like 5 or maybe 6 months have passed at this point. It's been months. And I get a call, and it's from a number that's not in my phone, and I just pick it up. I'm just like, hello, and it's him. And I'm just like, like, what? Okay. Hi, like, I haven't spoken to you in months, and he's talking to me like everything's all good, and I'm just like, nah, sir. So, so fast forward, somehow I end up kind of like getting back together with him, even though, clearly he got kicked out of school for selling drugs. He ended up going to jail, so that was why I hadn't heard from him in months. He was locked up. And I was still entertaining this person and hanging out with this person. Mind you, I am still a virgin at this point. And he tried to kind of like pressure me, and we kind of like would do certain things, but I never went all the way because I knew like deep down that this was not my person. This is not someone that I wanted to go all the way with, so to speak, right? So we ended up kind of just like breaking up at some point. I really don't even remember how or why or what happened. So we're over with. So going into I'm going to skip over, going into my junior year. So by my junior year, I am full-blown party girl. Like, I'm getting drunk all the time. I'm out Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, sometimes a random Tuesday night. Like, I am out in these streets. I am partying. I was, every now and then I was like smoking weed, but that was never really my thing. I never really got into like smoking a lot. But I definitely was drinking shots, Long Islands, like just always drinking, always partying. So again, but let me stop it here real quickly. Me and my friends in college, we were, I think our sophomore year, we had started attending a local community church up at my school. And we went pretty much every Sunday for a while. And I started to feel that peace, that presence come back to me. And I held on to that for as long as I could. And then I kind of, again, started to slowly slip away, and not putting that much effort into it. So just so you know, I still was having moments of trying to connect again into my spirituality and my faith, but it wasn't consistent. That's the point I'm trying to make there. So this is where it starts to get really good, quote unquote, but bad, but good, like more interesting. So, going into my junior year, I decide I want to become an RA. My other best friends were, doing their own thing. Because we had been roommates all the other years of college, and we're like, I think this is a year, like, let us try something new. Let us all try to get our own rooms. And I was like, yeah, like, I'm down. So I interviewed for an RA position. I got it in a freshman dorm. So essentially I was overseeing a freshman dorm floor in a freshman dormitory. As the RA, I had my own room, got free room and board. It's a sweet deal. I was so excited. I loved all my girls on my floor. And in this process, there was another RA that was a boy. So we had girls and boys were separated by floors, but they were co-dorm rooms, but they were just separated. So there was a boys floor and then a girls floor, then a boys floor and then a girls floor. So he was the RA on the boys floor. And we immediately, the moment we started like talking, because we were all RAs, so we had to like, have a rapport with each other. And we all actually became really good friends, all of the RAs in that particular dorm. And we clicked. And when I tell you guys, this was probably what I would consider at the time that one. That one that makes you lose your mind and you're actually insane. That one. All you girls know the one I'm talking about. That this was him. This was him. I thought this was like my first love. Like, you could not tell me that this was not my first love, that this was like the guy for me. I was just in it from the very beginning. We would stay up and talk until 3 a.m. just talking, laughing. We had so much in common. He was funny. He was goofy. He got my sense of humor. I got his sense of humor. We were both from the same area in New York City. So that was another thing we kind of like shared, and we kind of knew what it was like growing up in New York City and all of those things. So, sorry, I'm just making sure I'm staying on track here. So, biggest thing with this situation with this guy was he did not want a girlfriend. He made it very clear once we kind of started liking each other that was like, yeah, I like you, but I don't want a girl. Like, I don't want to have any type of commitment. And instead of me being like, okay, cool, let's just stay friends, I was like, no, I love you. That's it. I don't care. Like, I'll just, whatever. I'll take whatever you give me kind of thing. Horrible, horrible strategy. But at the time, again, me being very naive and not fully understanding dynamics and the way boys are, right? I just, again, was kind of just going along with this. So this was the person that I became very intimate with. And this was the person that I actually lost my virginity to. This was the person that I had an extremely toxic soul tie to. I would just be so like enthralled with him and so just everything. Like, I just always had to be around him. I would get jealous if I saw him talking to other girls. I would get mad if another girl was in his room late at night. Like, all of these things. And it was just never, after we added that element of actually sleeping together on a consistent basis, it just was not good. Just drama, just not healthy at all in any shape or form. So this went for pretty much the rest of my college time. And this is where things started to shift for me in bigger ways. So I want to say when I was 19, we were being intimate a lot, and a lot of times we wouldn't be using protection. And I got pregnant. And I was freaking out. I've never hid anything from my best friends. I didn't want to tell anyone. I was so embarrassed. I was like, wow, like I'm in college. Like I have to graduate. I have to do things the right way, Like I was supposed to do everything the way everyone else in my family had did things. I was supposed to get married, then have kids. I cannot be a 19-year-old single mom, because there was no way that this guy was going to stick around if I had a kid. Like, absolutely not. I already knew that. So we decided to have an abortion. And that's when something switched off for me. Like, completely switched off. I became a different person after that. I literally, I was cold. I felt detached from my body. I didn't feel like my body was mine anymore. I knew I was Tiffany, and I knew that that's who I was, but my spirit or my soul didn't feel like it was in me anymore. And it's something that's very hard to put into words. And if any young girls are out there, and my prayer is that you never go through this and you never make that choice. But if you have, I think you can kind of understand what I'm saying. It's this thing where you kind of just detach like yourself from your feelings, from your own body. It's very, very dark. It's very dark. And it's a dark feeling that I still to this day probably will never be able to fully articulate. And so that's what changed me. And there was a lot more that kind of happened in that situation, but I don't want to harp on it too much, because that was the main thing in that relationship that rocked me to my core, pretty much. So after this, we still were in this really toxic situation. And I had other guys in college that kind of liked me or had crushes on me, but I was just stuck on this person. And I was a year ahead of him, so he was a year behind me. So when I graduated, he was still in school. But we still would talk. We would still, if he would come home from break, we would sometimes still hang out. And so I never really felt any like weird, like, oh, I need to like cut this off, or he's acting strange towards me. And he was acting a little weird like the last time we had like hung out in person, but I still didn't like think of anything. So back then Facebook was still like a big thing. Like everyone used Facebook. And so one of my best friends, I think she either called me or she texted me, and she was just like, hey, Tiff, have you checked your Facebook recently? And I was just like, no, like there was no reason for me to check it. She was like, yeah, your guy has like a girlfriend. She's like a freshman. I'm just like, wait, what? Not my guy. Like, you're joking. The guy that never wanted to commit to me, said he never wanted to have a girlfriend. He just didn't want me as his girlfriend, which was totally fine. But at the time, I was just like, wow. So I go crazy. I'm like calling him back to back to back, like 40 times, 50 times. He blocks me on Facebook. He blocks all my best friends on Facebook. He blocks me from calling him. Again, I get no type of closure. I'm just left to be like, okay, I guess this is what we're doing. We're just never going to speak again. And this is where I had my first real reconnection with God, because I felt like I was just at my ultimate lowest. I was so broken by this relationship. I was so hurt on so many different levels, just the way there was like zero care for me. in so many different instances besides this one, but this was like the main one that was just like, wow, you really don't care about me at all. And I had to dig deep, and I said, God, like, please help me. Like, I don't know what to do. And I started working out, and I started reading my word again, and I started praying every single day, and I felt so good, and I got so strong. And the crazy thing is maybe like a few months later, and I'm like doing my healing, and still didn't understand about soul ties back then, so that wasn't being dealt with properly, and I think that's how I ended up getting into more trouble. As you'll find out, it gets worse, guys. It gets worse. And so he emails me, of all things. He emails me, and I think he says something. I don't remember again. These things happened years ago, and I've obviously healed and have forgiven all of these people for everything. But I want to say he emailed me and said to me something along the lines of like, don't ever contact me again. It is what it is. And I think I even had like reached out to his mom. Like, that's how crazy I had gotten over this guy. He's like, don't ever talk to my mother again. Don't ever reach out to my mom. You're crazy. Which I was. I fully was. I was not myself. Like, I literally was not myself. And I now understand, like, I was definitely, again, I want to do a whole separate video on soul ties and how you can become demonically oppressed, possessed by spirits that are attached to other people that you're being intimate with. And that was definitely a part of that situation. And so I wasn't like my true self. I was acting out in these ways. And by then I was already like over the situation. So I might have just been like, okay, cool. Or I don't even remember if I responded or not, but whatever. So that's kind of the last time we ever spoke, I guess, if you want to call that speaking, or had any type of contact. So I moved, I'm already like done. So I also want to bring up the fact that at this point, my dream as like a young, fresh out of college young lady was to work in the music industry at the time. I wanted to work at a label. I wanted to be in the scene, in the entertainment industry. That was my dream. I just wanted to work at like Bad Boy or just Sony or just any one of the like huge labels. That's what I went to school for. I minored in business, but I mainly wanted to get into that realm of entertainment and things. That was my passion at the time. So I started my first like actual real good job out of college. I was working for a very well-known, popular radio station media company that owns some of the biggest radio stations in New York and the region. And I was feeling myself, I was like, all right, like your girl's coming up. And so this is where we get into pretty much the rest of my journey and what even led me to start this channel. So I meet my child's dad around this time. So just so everyone knows, I am a single mom. I have a 6-year-old daughter. And so this is around the time that I meet her dad. So I meet my daughter's dad around this time. I'm just, like I said, just in my new career, and I'm like, okay, like I'm getting it. And comes into my life, and literally we talk. So I'll never forget the first time we like talked and hung out. I was out at like an event with one of my friends, and we had been texting, and he was like, oh, like I want to come like hang out and talk. He's like, I'll just drive around like your hood or whatever. You can come just like sit in the car. Let's just talk. Right. So he pulls up in a white BMW, and here I go again, like, ooh, like, look at his car and all this foolishness, right? So get in the car, and we talk literally until the next day. Like, I got home from like the event or party I was at maybe like 1, and I'm thinking, okay, like, we'll talk till maybe like 2 a.m. or something. No, we're talking literally. I see my mom, because I'm still living at home at this time. I see my mom leaving for church. So it's like 8:30 in the morning. So we've been talking literally all night into the morning and then some. So I'm just like, all right, like, this might be something. So we, part ways or whatever. So then, we're still talking. He asked me out on a date. So now I'm really excited. So just this weird thing I did back then. So I had said to myself at this time, I was like, the man that brings me flowers on our first date, I know he's my husband, because I am a sucker for flowers. I love flowers. It's just, I'm a girl in that way. Like, I really think flowers are beautiful. And I didn't tell him this, mind you. I did not tell him that this was something I had made up in my own head. Like, the first guy that brings me flowers on our first date, he's the guy for me, kind of thing, right? So, have our first date, picks me up, and he has white lilies. And I'm just like, no, this can't be right. Like, no, he didn't pull up with flowers. Like, and in my head, being young again and very naive, I'm thinking that means something. I'm thinking God is confirming to me. Mind you, I'm not praying. I'm not in my word at all again at this point. Thinking that God would be confirming anything to me right now. And I'm like, yes, God, yes, thank you. You confirmed that this is my husband. So I'm going into it already like, this is the guy. So we go out, we're dating, everything. He eventually asked me to be his girlfriend. And there were quite a few red flags that I dodged, ignored, missed, whatever you want to say. Definitely did not pay attention to them, chose not to pay attention to them. And I got into a full-blown relationship with this person. And this is where things get really, really bad. So, I don't want to get into all of it. I feel like I'll do a separate video because this is what was my narcissistic abuse relationship that I was in. I was in a narc abuse relationship for 7.5 years about. And again, like, everything I'm saying here is not to bash anyone else. This is my experience. This is part of my testimony. Again, like I said, this is what made me who I am today and who I continue to grow into be. So again, there's no shame. I've forgiven everyone that I'm mentioning in this video. So it's not to bring any type of hate or anything like that whatsoever. But this was an abusive relationship, and I'm not going to sugarcoat that for anyone. So I'm not going to get into all of that because, like I said, I do want to do a series probably on narcissistic abuse, how I healed, how you can heal if you're in a situation like that right now, how to kind of come out of that. Because I really think there's a lot of people that are struggling with this, because I know you get to a point because of the abuse cycle that you experience in those relationships, you lose all doubt and trust in yourself, and that you don't have good judgment and that you don't know what's best for you. So I definitely want to do a whole separate video on that. But to go back to this situation, so we're together, very much in love with this person at the time, and so I'm going to go straight into where things get really bad. They weren't good, mind you. They were good for maybe about a year or so, and then things started to take, and they were, when I say good, they were good in the sense that it wasn't as bad as it got, but that's a whole nother story. So anyway, going back to what happened, I'm just making sure I'm looking at my notes. So I end up pregnant, right? So I'm just going to go straight to this part because I think this is where it's most important that I touch on. So I end up pregnant, and this person knew my history. They knew that I had abortion before, that it was traumatic, that it changed me, and I let this person know that this is not something I was going to continue to keep doing. Like I just couldn't bring myself anymore to do those types of things. I just refused, and I knew deep down in my spirit that I could not go through with that again. It just was, like I said, very dark, and I just couldn't. And he knew these things. He knew this even before I had gotten pregnant with my daughter. He knew these things. So I'm pregnant, and he's not excited, right? He's not happy at all. He actually didn't even believe me. Like, even though I showed him tests, like I had to actually go to a doctor and get blood work done and get a sonogram for him to finally believe, like, okay, wow, like you really are, right? So I did all of that, and as soon as it like officially like sunk in with him, it was done. It was like abandoned. Like I was completely left alone. And at this time, without getting into anyone else's personal situations, I was still living at home, and he had ended up moving in with me and my family. My family took him in like a son. They loved him like a son at this time. So he was staying with me, living with me in my home. I got very ill my first trimester. I had a condition where you have like pretty much extreme morning sickness. It has like this crazy like medical term, but I don't know. If I can put it down at the bottom, I will somewhere. But it was a really bad sickness where I lost all this weight. I fainted. I had to be hospitalized for a week. And this person maybe came to the hospital one time, and the whole rest of the time I was with my mom. Like, when I say abandoned, I mean abandoned by him. My mother and my father, I don't want to get emotional, and my sister were my rock at this time. Like, literally my rocks. He was never around. He was always saying he had to work or he was going out. And, you know, I tried not to let it bother me because I'm pregnant, I'm sick. Like, I was trying not to worry or stress too much about what was going on with him or whatever. But I knew he resented me for deciding to go through with this. It was very clear. So never helped me, never took me to a doctor's appointment, maybe once again, and then it was all me either going by myself after work or my mom meeting me in the city to go, because I ended up switching doctors because I was having a lot of issues with my sickness. So there was that as well. There was that aspect of it as well. So as I'm, going through my pregnancy, I finally start to kind of feel better. And I noticed that a few things had happened. So he had started sleeping in the other room in my parents' house. So obviously I had my own room, and he used to sleep in that room with me. And there were times, being pregnant, your hormones are always changing, ramping up for the baby. And there were times where I would get very sick to my stomach with just smells that would never bother me or anything. And there were times he would have on certain cologne or just, his body wash or whatever. And it just bothered me, his smell. So I'd be like, hey, can you go sleep in the other room? I'm feeling nauseous. And so he would. And then when that went away, obviously I didn't want him to keep sleeping in that other room, but then he would still go sleep in the other room with the door closed. And sometimes I would feel like I could hear him talking, but I wasn't sure. And I never got up to go in the room to see what he was doing. I kind of just was whatever. So his phone would ring at 1:30 in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning. And I'd be like, your phone's ringing. Like, are you going to pick it up? And it was always like, no, like, it's not important, whatever. So again, me not thinking anything of it. So fast forward, going, like I said, going through my pregnancy completely alone, completely abandoned, not caring. He knew when I was due. So he knows when I'm due, when I'm expecting the baby, have a baby shower. He barely sticks around for it. As soon as it's over, he goes and leaves to hang out with some guys from work, his friends or whatever. Leaves me alone right after the baby shower. I'm not posting my pregnancy journey because I'm not happy. I'm going through it at this point. And again, right now I am not praying. I am not anything. I'm just existing. I'm just literally existing at this point, which is a horrible, horrible way to live. If anyone knows what I mean by that, you're just living day to day. You're just here because you're here. And that's how I was feeling at that time. So, moving forward, I'm getting closer to my due date. He knows when I'm due. You would think any loving, caring husband, partner, he wasn't my husband, obviously, but any loving, caring partner would be there for you, right? Like, okay, I know your due date's coming up. I want to make sure I'm here for you. I have my bag packed. Like, that's how close we were. So it's a Sunday night. He's not around at all. Like, just nowhere to be found, just not even getting in contact with me, checking on me, doesn't care at all about me and what I'm going through or his future child, nothing. So I start feeling weird, and my parents are here, obviously they're with me, and I come into their room and I'm like, I think I'm having contractions. So my dad like jumps up and he's like, all right, let's go, because I have to make it all the way down into Manhattan to give birth, because that's where my doctor was. That's where his hospital was based. So I'm trying to reach him. I'm like, hey, I'm going into labor. I don't know where you are. I don't even know if you're going to show up, but I'm just letting you know, like, I'm heading to the hospital. He doesn't respond, like, at all right away. Maybe hours later he might. So I get down to the hospital. At this point, I'm not worried about him or what's going on. I could care less because I'm in pain. I'm just like, oh my gosh, like, this is actually happening. Like, I'm about to give birth. Like, this is nuts. So get to the hospital. My mom and dad are with me. And right before either I start to push, because my labor progressed very quickly. They thought I was going to labor until the next day. I went from 2 centimeters to 9 in 10 minutes. And they're like, oh my gosh, the baby is coming right now. So either right in the middle of me pushing or right before I was about to push, he shows up. He looks out of it. I'm going to just say it like that. Looks out of it, right? So push, whatever, he's there, whatever. Give birth to my daughter, and he's just not saying anything to me, just all right, whatever. And so then I'm just in shock. I'm literally in shock. I'm like, oh my gosh, I have a whole human right now that is relying on me to take care of them. What do I do? I'm just not even comprehending what just happened, because it happened so quick and so fast. So, he's there. He's constantly leaving the room, and then he said he was going to get food and was missing for hours. It was just really strange. Oh, and before this, I want to add one more thing, because all of this will tie in to where I'm going with this. My birthday was in the summer, so I was pregnant. Me and my daughter's birthdays are both in the summer. So I was very far along for my birthday, and he's like, I'm gonna take you out for your birthday. So he takes me out to Tao, which is a pretty nice restaurant in the city, and we're going, and literally maybe every 20 minutes, he's like, I gotta go to the bathroom. He goes to the bathroom. He's in the bathroom mad long. And then we stopped at one point. He wanted to go grab gum from a bodega or something. And we go and he's like walking like way ahead of me and like on the phone. I'm like, what is this? And then after dinner, he like drives me home, and I'm like, are you gonna stay with me? It's my birthday. He's like, nah, I gotta go. So he leaves me on my birthday, like after he takes me out to dinner, and has pretty much been like leaving me throughout the night to go to the bathroom and to do these different things. And then he eventually is like, drops me off, like, gotta go, see you later. And then don't hear from him again. So keep all of these things in mind as I'm telling you this. So have my baby, whatever, all of that's good. Trying to adjust being a new mom. My mom and my sister and my father are literally everything to me at this time. He's nowhere to be found. He's out every single weekend, every night, never there. Just not there at all. Doesn't help with getting any diapers, not contributing any money to anything. It's me, my mom, my sister, my dad paying for everything. I mean, obviously I got quite a few things from my shower, but it was like anything that she needed was on us financially. He's not contributing anything, and he's still staying at my family's house with us, but he's never there. He's always out. So, I'm just, at this point, I'm just like, whatever. Like, I have to focus on my daughter. I have to be present for her, even though I'm struggling. I can't let that, like, stop me from doing what I need to do as her mom. She needs me. So I'm trying not to let what's going on with him affect me. So, we come to find out my daughter is sick. So I take her for her regular well baby visit. As a mom, anybody that's listening that's a mom, you have to take your newborn baby every month pretty much to a well baby visit, making sure like everything's good and they're growing the way they're supposed to be and they're eating and all these things. So I take her to my doctor and she's fine. Come back, and my dad, again, God bless my father, he's like, she feels warm. He's like, she feels abnormally warm. Like, we might need to take her back to the doctor. So we take her back to the doctor. The doctor takes her temperature. It's like 103. And she's like, she needs to be rushed straight to the children's hospital immediately. There is something wrong. So we rush her to the hospital. I'm freaking out. My baby is only like a month and some change at this point. She's still so little. I'm like, God, and this, I'm like, God, please save my baby. Like, I don't know what's going on, but please save her. So I text him. I'm like, I'm taking our baby to the hospital. She's sick. There's something wrong. So he eventually gets there. It takes him a long time to get there. He finally gets there, and he's yelling at me. He's like, how do you do this? And like screaming at me like I did something wrong and it's my fault. And I'm just like, oh my gosh. And they had to do like a spinal tap on her, and she's a baby. She's so little. And I'm just, my dad is there, and they do all these things, and I can hear her crying, and she's just in pain. And so, make a long story short, they find out that she has a this condition, which they check you for in the beginning, but if you don't, you're supposed to get like an antibiotic for it ahead of time so you don't pass like whatever it is to the baby. And I got that done and it came back negative, so I don't know what happened between then and when I gave birth to her, but apparently she had it. I didn't receive the antibiotic, but at least, thank God, they knew how to treat it, and she had to be on a round of antibiotics for a substantial amount of time. I think it was two full weeks or something like that she had to be in the hospital and receive these antibiotics and be monitored. So I am just a mess. My whole family is a mess. Like, we're doing shifts at the hospital. He's there every now and then. And so he comes to me and he's like, hey, I have a wedding I need to go to in Jamaica. I can't get out of it mind you, our daughter is in the hospital, literally, like, just could have passed away, right? Like, sick in the hospital. And he tells me that he has to go to this wedding in Jamaica and there's no way he can get out of it. And I'm just like, wow, like, okay, like, what am I supposed to say at this point? Like, you're already telling me you're going. There's nothing you can do to get out of this wedding in Jamaica. So he leaves. He goes to Jamaica. We'll get to that. He goes to Jamaica for like 3 or 4 days, and then he comes back and he's all happy, and I'm just like, your daughter's still in the hospital, you know that, right? Like, she's still sick in the hospital. So that happens. Fast forward, I'm in my bed at night alone, per usual, with my daughter. She's in her crib. She's finally sleeping. And it's maybe like 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm barely getting any rest. So while she's sleeping, I'm trying to sleep. And my phone rings. And I don't pick it up because I'm not the type to just pick up numbers and phone calls of people I don't know. I don't recognize the number. So I don't pick it up because I'm just like, oh, this is like, I don't know. Just like someone has the wrong number. So I don't pick up. I don't answer. And so, what happens? So a girl, I pick it up because, all right, so it keeps ringing and I'm like, okay, clearly this person's trying to reach me. So I pick it up and it's a girl on the phone and she's just like, are you so-and-so's baby mama? Like, I'm never this woman, but I need to tell you that I'm with him and he loves me and he told me you're crazy. He told me that that's not his kid and all this stuff. And I'm just like, what? Like, what is like, I'm highly confused at this point. I am highly confused. I'm just like, okay. And she's going on and on. So then she proceeds to tell me that they just came back from a trip, a vacation from Mexico. So I'm like, wait, when did you say you went to Mexico together? And she tells me the time. And it's the exact time he claims he went to Jamaica for this wedding, this family wedding. So now I'm like, wow, so you knew your daughter was sick in the hospital and you decided to go on a vacation with your side chick or whatever you want to call her, to Mexico? Huh? Like, that's what we're doing now? Knowing your daughter's sick in the hospital and you're going to Mexico with a girl for 3 or 4 days and telling me that it's a wedding in Jamaica and you can't get out of it and your dad will be pissed if you don't show up and all of this stuff. And that's when I was like, okay, cool. When I tell you guys, I could not even, I was just so numb. I was just like, wow. So this person proceeds to come to my house. It's like, at this point, it's like 3 a.m. He's blowing up my phone. Like, he was calling my phone so much, I had to turn my phone off because he was just blowing it up, back to back to back to back. He shows up at my house at like 3 a.m. And my dad is like, Tiffany, you need to handle this. I don't know what's going on. And so I come downstairs and he's just like, I'm sorry, forgive me. I'm just like, wow, like what? Like everything that I thought I knew about this person, I'm just like, I don't even know who you are. Like, I am just shocked. You would think that was it, guys. You would think that was it. But guess what? It wasn't. It was not. My battery completely died on me. So hopefully it's not too choppy, but I want to make sure I pick back up where I left off. So I believe I was telling you guys about the whole thing in Mexico. I found out the girl called me and pretty much told me all of these things that have been going on. And, you know, I'm not that naive. I had a feeling something was happening because he was buying all these new clothes and very worried about his appearance, and obviously constantly being out, and you know, having his phone everywhere he went. And again, remember I told you I would hear him like sounding like he was whispering on the phone in the other room when he was sleeping in the other room when we were living in my parents' house. So somehow he had a way of reeling me back in with no type of effort or change or anything. It was just literally talking a few times and him convincing me that we needed our own space. He was like, I think, you know, we're a family. I want us to be a family, and we can't really truly have that family experience living with your parents. So then it was like, let's go get our own place. Oh, and before this happened, so during the process of me like initially calling it quits and like being like, leave me alone, don't speak to me, he had also convinced me that it would be a good idea to start saving up money for our daughter and opening up a joint account for her, which I agreed to. And I was putting in money out of all of my checks that I was getting from work. I was on maternity leave still at this time, but I was still getting paid a portion of my salary. So some of that money was going into into this joint account for my daughter. He would put a little bit of money, but most of the money was coming from me. And so when all of this happened, my mom was like, Tiffany, you need to go check that account. So I went to the bank and it was completely wiped out. So I don't know if that's the money he used to fund this trip to Mexico with this girl. I have no idea to this day. I have no idea what he did with that money. But he took all of it, and I eventually got it back from him. But yeah, he never told me he was taking money out of there, because again, it was supposed to be for our daughter. It wasn't money that either one of us was supposed to be using or spending. And so he had wiped it clean, and I believe that's the money he used to go on this trip, or a portion of it, or, you know, he used that towards the trip, and then, you know, used whatever other funds he had to fund the rest of it. But I believe that's what he ended up doing with that money that we had put in the joint account for our daughter. So fast forward, we end up moving into this like really nice luxury building. Again, I was more financially secure than he was, and I had, you know, good credit. So, you know, we were able to get this apartment because, you know, I was like the main person that they looked at income wise and credit wise and all of those things. He was also on the lease, but again, like, it was mostly due to my job security and the money I was making and my credit that we got approved for this apartment. So we move into this apartment, and I'm thinking, okay, maybe this was just a bump in the road, like we can get past this. I am a huge family person. Like, I love family. I adore my family. I think the family unit is just so important. And he knew this also about me. He knew like what type of person I was, and the fact that family did mean everything to me. And without me actually realizing at the time, he was playing into the fact that he knew like I wanted this idea of having this picture perfect family, even though he was still not committed to me in the sense of marriage or any of those things, even though way before he was future faking. It's another thing that narcissistic people do, where he had me, we were ring shopping, and he would say things to my family like, I'm gonna marry her soon, like, you know. So it was never with the true intentions of any of those things actually happening, but he would, you know, do these things that would give me just like breadcrumbing me and giving me just a little bit of like hope that yes, these things would eventually happen. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, I have my family. I have to keep my family together. This was just, you know, we were both going through something that's life-changing, making all these excuses for his behavior, and his emotional neglect and abuse towards me, right? Just making all of these excuses for him. So we move into this apartment together, and for a little bit, like, things are okay. Like, there's nothing too crazy going on, and he starts a new job at this time, and he has like a management position at this job, and, you know, he's doing fairly well. So, you know, we're raising our daughter and living life, and I want to say everything started again. So mind you, we've had multiple conversations about the first situation with the girl. I'll talk about that in another video, but we had multiple conversations, and it was made clear to me that he was like, I'm all in on us and our family. I will never do something like this again. I'll never put you through something like this ever again. And I believed him. I believed him at this time, and I trusted that this was just like a bump in the road, right? Big bump, right? But I'm, again, not having any relationship with God, still not praying, kind of still just existing. At this time, I was still very like living for someone else, and this person had almost became like the center of my world, which is extremely, extremely unhealthy, extremely codependent and dangerous. And this is where I take accountability for the fact that I was lacking boundaries, I was lacking self-love, respect for myself in general. And that's because I didn't know who I was, and I made my identity this person in this relationship, which is extremely, extremely dangerous to do. So that is where I was at this point. So we're together, and I had recently, it was like we had taken like holiday photos at the time, and I had posted, you know, like a picture from our like holiday photos with our daughter on Instagram. And I captioned it like my family, or just something simple, nothing crazy. And I get a DM from this made up like fake account, and she's like, oh, is that your man or something? And, you know, I'm like, well, who are you? Like, I'm not going to just start telling my business to someone that clearly is in a fake account. They have no pictures, no followers, a made up name. And I'm like, what are you, like, why are you asking me this? And so essentially they come out and tell me welcome back again. So sorry. I feel like my camera keeps dying on me. So I believe I was up to the part that I got a DM from this random made up fake account, and you know, I'm like, well, who are you? And they're like asking me all these questions, and I don't feel obligated to like answer this person. I was like, well, who are you? Like, if you're not going to tell me who you are, like, I'm not, you know, going to continue to have a conversation with you. And so eventually I just stopped responding, but I did confront my ex about it, and I was just like, hey, like, what's going on here? I got this like random person DMing me, and they're saying that you are like seeing this girl. And so the first thing he tells me is he has no idea what I'm talking about. Like, it's completely made up. And I'm just like, okay, that definitely doesn't make sense, because I'm not popular on Instagram. I'm no, well-known person on Instagram, not like some, influencer or anything like that at all. So for some random person to find little old me, in the millions of people that are on Instagram, and just randomly make up this story seems really far-fetched, doesn't it? Like, wouldn't you guys agree? Like, that seems very unrealistic. So I'm just like, no, I don't, there's no way, there's something here, right? I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, there's gotta be something brewing here. But I was like, all right, cool. And because I used to be the type of person like, oh, I don't have proof, I don't have this. So I kind of like still pressed him about it, because I want to say the person reached out to me again, like a second time. I didn't respond back. But I want to say that they did reach out to me again. And so I was like, okay, what is happening here? And so then I started kind of pressing him about it. And then he was like, okay, well, she's just a friend at work. So I'm like, okay. All right, so you do know this person. Like, first you were like, this whole thing is made up, and now it's being revealed that you know who this person is, but they're just a friend at work. Then a friend at work turned to, oh, she has a crush on me, right? And then, oh, she has a crush on me, turned into, I just kissed her one time. What? Like, so it went from, you don't know anything about what I'm talking about, to this is a friend at work, to she has a crush on me, to I kissed her once and it was a mistake. And again, I am just like, all right, like, kind of just, I'm just letting everything fly at this point. I should have just been working at Delta. I was like letting everything fly and go, right? So I'm just like, cool. All right, fine. It was a mistake. Oh, gosh, everything is a mistake. Always making excuses for his behavior. So fast forward, we're still living together. And he does this thing where he used to do this to me also when we were, earlier on in our relationship, where he would be like, I just need some time, like not fully breaking up with me, but then making it seem like I just want some time. And he kind of was like in this weird thing where he would be like, I just need like to take a breather. And then he would like leave. So he would leave usually like on Friday. And I'm thinking, oh, he'll be back like, Friday night. This man would be gone the whole weekend and would just leave me. And I didn't drive at this time. I didn't have any transportation. And I'm like away from my family. We moved into this, like I was isolated pretty much. I didn't have any friends close by. I didn't have family. Like, not that they were super far away, but they were far away enough where I couldn't easily just take my daughter and go see them, like without having to take a Uber or like getting on multiple trains and buses. Like, I was far away enough where I couldn't just get up and walk over to my mom's house or get up and walk over to my best friend's house. Like, that wasn't the situation. So I was alone, stranded pretty much, no car, no way to really get around without spending tons of money on like Ubers or Lyfts or anything like that. So I'm just in the house every weekend just taking care of my daughter while he's just vanished. And then he would come back like Sunday morning and act like everything's all hunky-dory and wouldn't even tell me where he was, wouldn't care. And I just became complacent in that, and I just was like, well, I guess this is my life now, right? And so this continues, and then I really don't, to be honest with you guys. So much happened in this span of time that I'm not going to go through everything. But I will point out the last bits of the very important things that I need to share with you, that brought me again to, I would say maybe like my third trying to reconnect and get back to God. So eventually, this person found my number somehow and contacted me, and we had a conversation. Hey everyone, editing Tiff here. I totally forgot to add this part into my story, but also during this time, I started to get cyber bullied. I was being cyber stalked and harassed over this entire situation. It got so bad that I ended up having to completely just shut down my Instagram account. So yeah, that was something else that I was also going through at the time. And she revealed to me that, she was in a full-blown kind of relationship with my ex, and that they were very much so in love. And so this person, revealed to me that I had went away for like a weekend. I hadn't been away since I had my daughter, really. I have a cousin that lives in Atlanta, and she was like, Tiff, like, if you can, like, there's a music festival happening in Atlanta. You should come down. Like, we'll get an Airbnb. I was like, oh, that sounds super fun. Like, I haven't been out in so long. And I hadn't gone to see her in a while. Like, years had passed since I had been down to Atlanta to visit her. So I was like, yeah, let's do it. So, he was like, I'll take care of our daughter, no worries. So I got home, and when I come home, feels weird. Like, the energy's off in the house, feels strange. But I, again, kind of just brush it off or whatever. But then I'm looking around my house, and I noticed that, or my apartment, and I noticed that my things that are normally, like, left out are, like, smushed in a drawer, or they're, everything's not where I normally keep it. So when he comes home, I call him out. I'm like, hey, like, why is my stuff, like, not in its normal place? Like, what's going on? And he's like, oh, I was cleaning and I just forgot to put the stuff back. And again, I'm like, all right, I guess that is what it is. So as I'm speaking to this person, she tells me, like, yeah, and I've been in your house. And I'm just like, what? Like, what do you mean you've been in my house? Like, yeah, I've been in your place. And so now I'm putting two and two together, and I'm just like, okay. She's like, and I've been around your daughter for a very long time. And so, you guys, this is when I snapped. There was definitely some violence involved. I came downstairs and I proceeded to hit, slap, punch, whatever, hands and feet, everything on this person. It's not something I'm proud of now, obviously, to react in that way, especially in front of my daughter. I would never ever, I would never even be in a situation like that again to do something like that. But to know that this person had brought someone around my child unbeknownst to me, to bring this person into my home, into my bed, and proceed to be intimate with this person in my bed that I slept in every night with my daughter and that we shared together, was just the ultimate form of, like, wow, like, you really like have no type of character whatsoever, and integrity. And I'm embarrassed because this is the person I chose and I had a child with, so there's a level of guilt on my part too. And it was embarrassing because at the same time I have, my group of friends, and a lot of them are getting married now, and a lot of them are having children, and I'm in this horrific situation, and I'm trying to keep on this like face of everything's good and I'm happy, and I'm miserable, and I start drinking. And I mean, I am drinking during the day. I'm drinking with my daughter around. I am like, and these aren't just like, oh, like a glass of wine. Like I'm like getting drunk pretty much, like almost like really drunk a lot. And just to try and drown out everything that I'm feeling. And I'm eating disgustingly. Like I'm just eating my feelings. I'm gaining all of this weight, and I don't even look like myself anymore. I look in the mirror and I don't even know who I am. And I'm trying to mask all of this, and I'm not really opening up fully to my parents or to my friends or anyone that loved and cared about me through all of this. So this goes on for quite some time. I'm still living with this person. And so I'm going to fast forward some because a few more things happen, but it's something I can maybe talk about in like my narcissistic abuse video and recovery. If you guys want that from me, I can definitely do something like that as well. But pretty much we were still living together, still everything with my daughter. He is still actively pretty much in 2 relationships. Like, let's be honest. Like, he was literally in a relationship with this person, but still trying to maintain this like family relationship with me and our daughter. So as this is all happening, I want to say maybe like, I don't even know the time frame. Things are just very blurry. And thankfully, God has erased a lot of this stuff from my mind. So 2 more big things happen that I think are important for me to share. And I don't recall the order. So I'm going to do one of them first and then the second one, just because I feel like the second one ties into the rest of my testimony. So I'm in bed, I'm sleeping, and and by the way, during this whole time I'm living with him, I have severe sleep paralysis. Like, and just in case you guys don't know, sleep paralysis is demonic oppression while you sleep. It's where you literally feel like you can't move, you want to get up, you want to talk, but you're being demonically oppressed in your sleep. And that's why it literally feels like something, an entity or something, is hindering you from speaking out or hindering you from moving your limbs or snapping out of it. That is a real thing. And so I used to suffer from this constantly in this relationship, especially when we would share our bed. And there were times where I would also almost feel something grabbing my ankles and trying to like pull me down off of the bed. And it would scare me to the point where I knew to call out to Jesus, but I couldn't even, my mouth was just, I couldn't even speak. And eventually I would shake out of it a lot of times. So this one in particular, I wasn't having sleep paralysis, and I was asleep. And I woke up. I was fully awake at this point. Like, I know for sure because I saw everything in my room exactly as it is. It wasn't in a dream state or anything. And he was sleeping next to me on his stomach. And I saw a demon manifest on his back. He was holding him down on his back, and he looked directly at me, and we made eye contact. And it was the most, I'm getting chills just even saying this out loud, because I can still see how distorted and terrifying this demon was, and just everything about him was horrifying. It was something I couldn't even describe. His skin was like falling off. He had like white stringy hair. His face, it was just the most evil thing I think I've ever seen. I have ever seen in my life, to be honest. And he looked at me and he said to me, the demon said to me, "I've got him." Like, and the way he said it was just so like he belongs to me. Like, I've got him. Like, he is mine, kind of thing. And it was just, I literally could not sleep for the rest of the night. I got up out of bed and I went into my living room and I sat up, and I had to work in the morning. I think this was a weeknight. And I literally sat up until, I don't even know, like 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. I could not go back to sleep. I even tried to tell him about what I saw on him, and he kind of brushed it off. And that was another thing. Like, so he was very like not spiritual whatsoever. Every now and then he'd be like, "Yeah, I believe in God," but he had no fruits of any type of spirituality whatsoever. And so when I tried to tell him these things, and the crazy thing is he would say to me sometimes, he would say things like, "You don't know who I am. Like, if you really knew who I was." And then it's like, looking back on it, it's like, were those entities speaking through him to me, like almost warning me about what was going on spiritually with him? Because don't ever get it mistaken. Every relationship, every dynamic you have with someone is spiritual, whether you want to acknowledge it or not, doesn't mean that it's not true. So when he would say those things to me, I would laugh it off like, "Oh, he's just being stupid and trying to be funny." But it's like, now looking back, it's like, no, like those were things that those entities inside of him were literally telling, like, you don't know who you're messing with, kind of thing. Like, you don't know like what's happening inside, spiritually inside. And so he, even with that, when I tried to explain to him what I saw manifest onto him and on him, it was very like blown off, like very nonchalant. And that was something that stuck with me so much that I really started thinking, like, God, like, what is happening here? Like, I need to really get out of this. So one day I'm in the shower and I am just at pretty much rock bottom at this point. I'm unhappy, I'm overweight, I'm sad, I'm drinking, I'm obsessing over clothes and just all of these things, materialistic things, and feeling like those things are going to fill this void. And, I'm just a mess. I'm a mess. And so I'm in the shower and I break down and I start crying. And I said, "God, I know I don't even deserve to speak to you right now. I've abandoned you. But if you're hearing anything, if you're hearing even the slightest bit of this right now, please, I can't do it on my own. I need you to make it so clear to me that this is not what you have for my life, that I have no choice but to leave, because I couldn't do it on my own power. I couldn't. You would have thought, and I'm sure a ton of you are listening to this right now, like, girl, are you dumb? Yes, I was dumb. Girl, you're stupid. Yes, I was stupid, and I couldn't get out of it on my own will and on my own strength and on my own power. And that's what we try to do so much as people. We try to do everything on our own will and through our own power, and we will constantly come short because we are not relying on the person that created us, on our creator who knows us better than anyone else. And so I said this prayer and I cried in the shower, and I finished taking my shower and I kind of just let it be, right? I kid you not, that very next day, I'm at work and I'm at my desk at work, and I get a text. And the text is just a picture, I think, yeah. And it's a sonogram. And then comes in a text from this same person and proceeds to tell me, like, hey, I've been giving my ex grace to tell you this himself, but it seems like he has yet to do it, so I'm gonna do it and let you know I'm pregnant. And that is when I said, wow, God got me. Because for that to happen the very next day, after I said that prayer in the shower, and I was raw, like it was no type of like Heavenly Father. I was just like, God, yo, like I cannot do this anymore. I can't do this on my own. I need you to pull me out of this. And literally, as if this is not where you want me to be, if this is not what you have for my life, please, I just need a sign. Please give me a sign. And he was so faithful and so true and so good to me that literally the very next day that happened. And that's when it clicked. And my mind went into, my God is good. My God is real. My God is a provider. My God is a healer. And I knew I had to get out of that situation from that day. It was a process. Don't get me wrong. Like, it was a process. I didn't pack up and leave that same day. But that was the day I knew it was done. And I was never looking back. I knew in my heart and my soul, God had confirmed this for me more than ever. It was as black and white. There was no way anyone could tell me that was not God coming through for me and showing me that sign and giving me that sign that he did not want this for his daughter. He didn't want any of this for his daughter, but I was trying to live how I thought I should be living. And so with that being said, I got out of that situation. I moved on. We went our separate ways, and I was humbled. I had to move back in with my parents. I wasn't living in my nice fancy apartment anymore. God really brought me through a season of healing, of revelation. I was on fire. I was fasting. I was praying. I was getting deliverance. It was beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful. And I want to say the last part of my journey, which is for right now, and I'm continuing on this journey with him, but the biggest change that has brought me to where I am today and has brought me to even start this YouTube channel was the last revelation that I got from God. And this was after I was out of the situation. I'm feeling good again, started kind of shifting away from my relationship with God again, and getting back into like, wanting to be mixy and all of that, and going out and doing things. And within that, I was like, I think, maybe it'd be nice to like try and date again and things like that. And I actually kind of started talking to this guy and dating this guy, and it was okay, like, but he was very like wanting to go out all the time. He liked to go out and drink a lot, and that kind of started reeling me back into that, and drinking a lot and getting drunk, and all of these things. So I was hanging out with this person, and we were dating, and I, against my better judgment, I now know it was the Holy Spirit, but against my better judgment, I decided, for a plethora of reasons, I decided to get the jab. I'm just going to leave it at that. I went and got one. I was supposed to get two. If you guys know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. I'm not trying to get flagged or anything. You're supposed to get two with this particular medical thing that everyone was getting at the time. Didn't think, it didn't sit right with me from the very beginning. Something in my spirit was like, something ain't right about this, but I went through with it anyway. And I was supposed to go back within, I forgot the time you're supposed to wait, but they gave me like this thing. It was like, come back for your second round or whatever. I got extremely ill. I felt extremely ill, to the point where I didn't want to sleep at night because I thought I was going to pass away in my sleep. And so I was so sick. I lost easily like 40 pounds. I got down to like 104 pounds. At one point, I was deathly sick. I wasn't speaking to anyone. And I'm going through all of this, and this person, wasn't really understanding fully what was going on with me. I didn't really understand fully what was going on with me. And this is what really pushed me to where I am today. I deep down felt like this was going to take my life from me. And again, what do? I broke down and I asked God, but this is the first time I actually repented. And this is the thing that God always hears us when we come to him genuinely and honestly and earnestly, because he knows our hearts. But I had never truly asked God and repented to God for my sins and for all the things I had done, and for all of the being so disobedient and being so in my own, thinking I was my own God, and making other people gods, and making men idols in my life, and honestly placing relationships and men and clothes and all other types of things in the place that God should have always been to me. And I just repented for everything. I said, God, forgive me for all of it. Like, I just started listing. And obviously I can't list all of my sins, because you just could never, like, the amount of things. But I just started repenting, and it was a godly sorrow that I had. It was a true godly sorrow for how far I had fallen, and that I was even following the ways of this world, which I knew deep down is like, you cannot serve two masters. Like, you cannot want to be in this world and do the things the world's doing, but also want to have this relationship with Yah. Like, it doesn't work that way. So I broke down and I said, if you will spare my life, Father, I will serve you. I will be a servant to you. And literally, maybe 2 days later, he pointed me into the direction, and I got connected with a functional doctor. And my body, working with this doctor, she was able to start helping me to heal. And then I literally would pray over my body every night with like anointing oil, and I would just continue to pray over my body and ask God to take anything out of my body that was not of him, that was not his, just doing this constantly every single day, and I started getting stronger and stronger. And as I'm going through this, the person I was kind of talking to at the time wasn't liking my changing, to be honest. He was like, I'm not feeling this. Like, all you want to do is talk about God now, or you're not the same fun girl that you were before. And when he started speaking like that to me, because I was going to get baptized. I had joined a church. Like, I was on fire. And once I started hearing him kind of speak that way, I knew, like, this can't continue. There was other issues in that situation, but I knew regardless that if the person for me would never ever hinder my relationship with God, would want me to draw closer to God, and that's when I knew, like, yeah, this can't continue. This is not someone that God wants in my life long term. And so, that ended, and I was just continuing on this path and praying, and just, I felt his presence all over me, like all over me. And it's incredible. Like, when you truly are filled with the Holy Spirit, it is like no other peace. It is like no other reassurance that this world could ever give you. And so, with that being said, I just want to end this video by saying a few things. I pray that someone out there, if you're hearing this, if you're watching this video, especially any young women, men are not your God. Makeup is not your God. Clothes are not your God. Your friends are not your God. Like, there is a space that we all have, that we all look to fill. We want to fill it with something, whether it's money, women, men, drugs, alcohol. We're all looking to fill that void. And the enemy is so crafty that he just wants to continue to distract you with these things and keep saying, keep filling it, keep filling it. And it'll never be full until you fill it with what's supposed to be there. And that is Yahusha. That is our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. That is his place in our hearts. And I had to go through a lot of different things to ultimately understand that. But again, I wouldn't change a single thing about what I went through. And and I'm not perfect. I still struggle. But now I know that I am his daughter, and I know that he ultimately wants the best for me. And I really hope and pray that someone out there hears this message and it touches them. And again, I am just so grateful for you to stick around and to have listened through this entire video. And like I said, I am still a work in progress. The Lord is sanctifying me every single day, and I'm committed to this journey. I'm committed to this life. And, this is something that I've wanted to do for so long, and God has finally given me the strength and the courage to stand up and speak out and share my story with you guys. And yeah, I just thank you so much for listening. I hope you guys enjoyed. I would love for you to like, comment, subscribe. I want to connect with you guys. Let me know what other videos you want to see from me. I plan to upload every Thursday and Sunday. So I have a ton of stuff that I already want to share. But if there is something specific that you guys want to hear from me or see from me, please feel free to reach out. I have all my contact information in the description box below. And yeah, this is Tiff Testifies, and I will see you another time. God bless.